I kind of want to get started, right there with not so much the Giants, but the first thing you said, which is the Jets and that promising young quarterback play, specifically, obviously, Zach Wilson. And just as a Jet fan myself, everyone who knows me knows that I'm crazy about this team. If you heard me rant about the Mets, you've heard me rant about the Jets. And I'm thrilled with the performance so far of Zach Wilson. And I know it's the preseason, but for me as a Jet fan, it's very refreshing to see for a variety of reasons. There's a lot to break down. I mean, between the play itself, between some of the things that have been said from other people around the league, which of course you kind of pump the brakes on a little bit, but of course that's obviously something you want to hear as well. But let's just look at the stats right away. I mean, in that game against Green Bay last week, 9 of 11, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, both to Tyler Kroft, who knows if he'll do anything during the regular season, but it's nice to see some tight end production for the Jets there. And not even just so much the stats, but just the eye test. I mean, he threw a nice tightrope to Corey Davis, a 30-yard gain on that first touchdown drive. Kind of his first read wasn't open, and then he looked down the sideline. And also to me that showed some progress because the first game he seemed to be staring down receivers a bit. He played well the first game, don't get me wrong, but again, you're seeing that improvement, you're seeing that progress. I said it during last week at NFL Friday. He looks comfortable, and he continued to look comfortable in the Green Bay game. Just your initial thoughts on his performance against Green Bay and how he's done so far in the preseason.
Yeah, I completely agree with that point that he looks comfortable, which I think that in the beginning of camp, I remember there was that one practice where they said he threw like a ton of interceptions. And then going into that Giants game, I was actually at the game and I was like, I was like, oh boy, like what am I about to see here? And then he looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked like he knew the offense. He wasn't trying to do too much. He wasn't trying to fit it into triple coverage, which I know a lot of people are saying that, he could have a little bit of that gunslinger type mentality, but I didn't really see a lot of those rookie mistakes in that first game. I know he wasn't amazing, but it was exceeded my expectations just because everyone was saying around the league in practice, like he wasn't looking so good. But then to me, he looked pretty good. Definitely the best quarterback in that game. Now I know that Daniel Jones didn't play in it, but he definitely looked like the best quarterback there. And then the second game, it was like, okay, now this was the next step. He throws the 2 touchdowns, as you said, and it looks like I said coming into that draft with him and Lawrence and everybody, I was like, he has the most potential. Now to unlock that potential, I think you need good coaching around him. I think we'll see with what LaFleur does, and it's kind of just time will tell in that matter. But, I think so far so good. And if you're a Jets fan, you're like, finally, maybe we got, someone here.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that really impressed me, not only the comfortability, just that quick release. I mean, there are things that Wilson does that you watch that don't show up on the stat sheet, and the release is one of them. And also this is going to happen. It's already happened before. There's already going to be all those comparisons to Darnold. I think it's natural. Another guy who was a top, 3 quarterback pick over to the Jets. Obviously it didn't work out here for him for Sam. So it's natural to compare Sam and Zach. And when you think about Sam, he kind of had a longer release. It wasn't really fast. He didn't throw a pretty ball. It was a little uglier. And now I got Zach. He's zipping it out there. He's throwing it with power. He could throw it all over the field. I mean, look, you don't want to teach this, but he could throw off his back foot. He could throw across his body. They're dangerous throws, but he can make them. And to see a guy who can have the quick release, make all the throws inside and outside the numbers, it's refreshing to see, especially compared to Darnold. And, and another thing to think about, and I know I mentioned it before, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but as a Jet fan, obviously I'm excited. I like what I'm seeing. It's refreshing. It's great. But what gets me even more excited, and I have to temper it, like I said, is to hear what other people around the league, people who know what they're talking about, are saying. First off, Aaron Rodgers. Of course, the Jets, Aaron didn't play in that game, but they had that whole week of joint practices. Aaron Rodgers, of course, saw Zach Wilson a lot, and he said he was really impressed with him. He said, I really like his disposition, his mentality, he could throw the heck out of it, which, of course, Aaron Rodgers, regardless of what you think of him as a person and his kind of mentality, he is one of the greatest quarterbacks, at least, physically or, that we've ever seen in our lifetime. Just one of the most naturally gifted quarterbacks I've ever seen. Maybe not most accomplished, but if anyone's going to praise you, he's definitely one of the guys you want to hear from. And then you got Tony Romo, who obviously a very solid quarterback for a number of years, maybe even a better broadcaster in terms of predicting plays. So, I value Tony's insight here, and he thinks, he's comparing Zach Wilson to Dan Marino. Now that's a little crazy for me. I'm not going to go that far, but to hear that, Robert Saleh, obviously, the head coach has been very impressed as we've gotten over here. So look, it's not only about the numbers, it's not only about the eye test in these games, but it's also about hearing people who are trusted NFL experts giving their opinion, saying they're liking what they're seeing from Zach. Now it's only 2 preseason games. We haven't even gotten to the regular season yet. He's only played against backup defenses so far. He has not played a starting defense. This will probably come, tonight against the Eagles. But that being said, I don't know how he's going to do, but I'm encouraged so far, and these words from other people are even more encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played a regular season game yet, so I don't, you don't want to put the put the gas on too much on him. But I mean, especially with what the Jets are coming off of with Darnold, I think there's a difference. And for someone that I just feel like Zach Wilson, what I've seen from him before in BYU and what you see from him now, like he definitely has the arm, and that's a huge part. I mean, look, good quarterbacks, you can be a great quarterback. You don't need the big arm, but it helps to have that big cannon. And, you look at the other guys around the league that just, if you can throw a ball, into certain places where other guys can't, that's going to give you the leg up, and it's going to give you the leg up even when you're progressing on, young in your career. And yes, he may make some mistakes that he's like, well, why are you throwing it there? Because he's like, I got this big arm. But, we saw it with a guy like Josh Allen, who came in, took him a few years, but then really found himself. I think having that big arm is going to be, I think, a difference maker when looking at these last few Jets quarterbacks that I think they've tried to, really. I mean, when you look at like the top five, like the Sanchez's, the Darnolds, they haven't had these like amazing arms, I think. And when you look at it, I think Wilson kind of is that first guy. I mean, maybe was Geno Smith have a big arm, they say, coming out of college, but he was a second round pick as it was.
Yeah.
So like, I think that when you look at, I know the Jets have not had success getting, a quarterback and getting, a good quarterback, but I feel like none of them had these huge arms. Wilson's really the first one, and it hasn't been even on display even early in preseason, and people are still raving about him. And when you compare him to the other quarterbacks that, other rookie quarterbacks, I think he's looked among the best, if not the best. So that's obviously great signs here in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, in terms of the arm, I mean, we heard it coming into the draft comparisons
Yeah.
to Rodgers, to Mahomes. That gets you excited. I mean, we haven't seen it as much, but he's still made some nice, pretty throws. I think having Elijah Moore when he comes back, that speed vertically down the field, even some, some crossers across the middle of the field, I think that'll help Wilson have a guy who's open downfield, get some nicer throws in there, but like some nicer deep throws, I should say. But I think the arm talent, like you said, is definitely a huge plus. But then you mentioned it, comparing it to the other rookie quarterbacks so far in the preseason. I mean, he's ranked right up the top. If he's not one, he's usually two, right behind Mac Jones. And for me, look, as a Jet fan, all I heard all of last season was, "There's no way Trevor Lawrence can come to the Jets. The Jets will ruin him. He'll be garbage. He's going to flame out." And look, it's only preseason. We got to, for every team, not even just the Jets, you got to kind of hold back what you're saying. But Lawrence has not looked that great in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's offensive line
Jags don't look
atrocious.
Good.
They have not
looked. I think that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, we'll get more into that later when we kind of talk about QB competitions. That was never a competition, but it's, to me, look, I'm just gonna throw out some stats right here. To me, it's a little bit of a last laugh as a Jet fan. Again, only 2 preseason games, but I can't help but enjoy this a little bit. So far, Zach Wilson in the preseason, 15-20, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 137. That's first among all quarterbacks in the preseason.